I found out my sister was getting married the same way strangers did, through a screen glowing in my hands, scrolling past smiles that didn't include me. The invitation was beautiful. Soft blush paper, gold lettering, her name written like it belonged to someone important. Someone celebrated. Someone loved loudly and publicly. My heart didn't break all at once. It cracked quietly, the way glass does when you don't notice until you cut yourself later. At first, I told myself it had to be a mistake. We had grown up under the same roof, shared the same last name, survived the same storms. Surely my own sister hadn't deliberately erased me. I refreshed the page again and again, checking comments, tagged names, guest lists people proudly posted. Cousins I barely spoke to anymore. Old classmates. Neighbors. Even my sister's yoga instructor had received an invitation. Everyone except me. I waited 3 days before calling my mother. 3 days of rehearsing excuses for my sister, 3 days of swallowing a tight ache in my chest. When Mom answered, her voice was brisk, distracted, already tired of something she hadn't even heard yet. "She didn't invite me," I said softly. There was a pause. Not surprise. Not confusion. Just silence heavy with knowing. "Yes," Mom finally replied. "She didn't." That pause told me everything. "Why?" I asked, though my voice already trembled with the answer. Mom sighed, the same sigh she'd used my whole life whenever I needed something inconvenient. "It's her day. Don't make it about you." The words landed cleanly, brutally. No apology. No acknowledgement of pain. Just a reminder of my place, somewhere on the edge, where feelings were optional. I laughed then. I hated that laugh. It came out automatically, like muscle memory. "Of course," I said. "I'm fine." "Really?" After the call ended, the house felt too quiet. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at nothing, replaying moments from childhood that suddenly made terrible sense. The birthdays where my wishes were skipped because hers mattered more. The arguments where I was told to be the bigger person. The praise she received effortlessly while I learned to survive on crumbs. I had learned early how to disappear without leaving a mess. That night, family group chats buzzed with wedding plans. Colors. Seating charts. Dress fittings. I read every message like a ghost haunting a house that no longer belonged to her. No one mentioned my absence. Not once. That hurt more than the missing invitation. When a cousin finally messaged privately, "Are you excited for the wedding?" I typed back a smiley face and said yes. I didn't correct her. I didn't explain. I didn't beg. Instead, I practiced my expression in the mirror. Calm. Light. Unbothered. The face of a woman who didn't need an invitation to feel whole. But when the lights went out, and the room fell dark, the truth crawled in beside me. I wasn't angry yet. I wasn't plotting revenge. I was just hurt in a way that settled deep, the kind of hurt that teaches you something important. That night, I made a quiet decision: if my family could celebrate without me, then one day, they would learn what my absence truly meant. The morning of the wedding arrived like any other day, sunlight slipping through the curtains, birds careless with their singing, the world unaware that something inside me had finally stopped trying. I lay in bed longer than usual, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of a house that had never really felt like home. I imagined my sister waking up surrounded by laughter, makeup artists, friends adjusting her dress. I wondered if, for even a second, she thought of me. The thought faded quickly. I had learned not to hope for things that were never offered. I didn't dress up. There was no dramatic protest, no black outfit, no tears on the floor. I pulled on an old sweater and tied my hair back. The simplicity felt like armor. If today was meant to erase me, then I would meet it exactly as I was, unadorned, honest, present only for myself. As I made tea in the kitchen, memories surfaced uninvited. The first time my sister took credit for my work at school, and my parents laughed it off as confidence. The way she'd borrow my clothes and return them ruined, then accuse me of being dramatic when I complained. The countless moments I had stepped back so she could shine brighter, told myself that love meant sacrifice, that silence was maturity. I had become excellent at smiling through the cut. My phone buzzed with wedding updates I hadn't asked for. Group photos. Hair half done. Dresses laid out like trophies. I watched from a distance, a guest to a life that wasn't mine. No one noticed my name missing from the room, and that realization hurt more than the exclusion itself. Still, I didn't say anything. I took a long walk instead. The streets were quiet, as if the city had decided to give me space. With every step, I felt something loosening inside my chest, not relief, not yet, but a strange calm. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for an apology that would never come. Back home, I sat by the window and let the afternoon pass. I imagined the ceremony starting. Music swelling. Vows spoken. Promises made. I wondered if anyone had noticed the cracks beneath the surface, the ones I'd seen for years but was never allowed to name. I had been warned not to make things uncomfortable. Not to ruin moments. Not to speak up. So I stayed silent. I stayed home. I respected the boundary they had drawn so clearly around me. What they didn't know was that silence changes shape when it's held long enough. It hardens. It sharpens. It teaches you where you truly stand. As the hours passed, I felt something unfamiliar settle in, clarity. I wasn't weak for being excluded. I wasn't dramatic for being hurt. I had simply been convenient to ignore. That realization didn't break me. It steadied me. When the sun began to dip and the house filled with shadows, my phone lay face down on the table. I hadn't looked at it in a while. I didn't know that the celebration had already begun to unravel. I didn't know that the truth I'd been protecting everyone from was about to explode into the open. All I knew was this: for the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing my family's approval. I wasn't trying to earn a seat at a table that had never been set for me. I was finally learning what it felt like to choose myself, even before the world forced them to notice what they had lost. I was folding laundry when my phone started buzzing. At first, I ignored it, telling myself it was probably spam. But the vibrations kept coming, urgent and insistent, each ping slicing through the quiet like a warning. Reluctantly, I picked it up. Messages. Dozens of them. From distant relatives, old friends, even people I barely remembered. The texts were frantic, almost incoherent. Are you seeing this? Call me now. Something's happening at the wedding, please answer. I froze. I had been home all day, safe in my cocoon of solitude, unaware that the carefully crafted celebration my sister had planned was unraveling in real time. My curiosity, mingled with a cautious sense of dread, made me open the first photo. The screen filled with chaos. My sister's hair was in the groom's hands, his face twisted with rage. Guests screamed, some trying to pull him back, others frozen in shock. A table was overturned, silverware scattered across the floor. Someone, possibly a bridesmaid, was holding a phone, recording every violent, surreal moment. I couldn't look away. My chest tightened. My stomach turned. The perfect, polished wedding everyone had flaunted on social media was gone, replaced by something I had feared but secretly suspected beneath the surface. Videos followed. Shaky, loud, terrifying. The groom yelling at vendors, knocking over chairs. My sister screaming, tears streaming down her face, pleading for him to stop. Guests cursing, trying to intervene, some dialing the police. The whole scene was descending into absolute anarchy, and yet, I remained on my couch, silently watching every frame. Then my phone rang. Mom. Her voice was unrecognizable. Not the composed, distant voice I had spoken to on the phone days earlier. She was crying, sobbing so hard that I had to lean back in my chair just to steady myself. Please, please come. You have to help. I don't know what to do. Everything's out of control. For years, I had been the one who smoothed over family disasters, who whispered solutions when everyone else panicked. I had been the invisible problem solver, the glue keeping fragile relationships from shattering. But this time, something inside me shifted. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, staring at the chaos on my screen. And for the first time, I realized, I didn't have to fix this. I didn't have to run to her rescue. I didn't have to be the one who cleaned up the mess they had created. I whispered softly, almost to myself, no. Mom's cries cracked through the line. Please. You always know what to do. You can't just stay there. I didn't answer. I didn't move. I just watched. And in the silence of my refusal, something powerful happened. The family that had so easily dismissed me, the sister who excluded me, the mother who told me not to make it about me, they finally understood the absence they had forced. I didn't gloat. I didn't taunt. I didn't even speak. I simply let the truth reveal itself without me. And in that quiet, I finally felt free. For the first time in my life, I realized the sweetest revenge isn't anger or confrontation, it's standing aside, letting those who hurt you witness the consequences of their choices, and knowing, deep in your bones, that you are untouchable by their chaos. The wedding that was meant to erase me had, instead, made me see my own power. And in that realization, I was stronger than I had ever been. The phone in my hand felt heavier than it should have. Mom's desperate cries echoed faintly through the line, pleading for my intervention, for guidance, for control over a storm she had ignored for so long. I sat in the quiet of my living room, the chaos unfolding miles away on my screen, and for the first time, I didn't flinch. I whispered the single word that had taken years to form, no. It wasn't defiance. It wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. Years of being the invisible sister, the silent absorber of everyone else's mistakes, had taught me patience. I knew when to act, and more importantly, when to let life do its work. The moment was theirs to unravel, not mine to rescue. And this time, I chose myself. My mother's sobs grew louder. You have to come. You can't just stay there. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I didn't justify. I simply sat in the calm that had been foreign to me for so long, watching the storm my sister had invited into her own wedding. And in that silence, I realized something profound: my absence was more powerful than any intervention could have been. The videos continued to arrive. My sister screaming, the guests recoiling in horror, the groom struggling to contain his fury, yet I remained untouchable by their chaos. I wasn't a character in their story anymore, I was the observer, the quiet force they had always underestimated. For years, they had dismissed me. They had made me invisible, told me to smile through the cuts, to absorb their mistakes, to stay quiet when my voice could have mattered. They had assumed I would always forgive, always rescue, always bend to their needs. Not today. I allowed myself a small smile, almost imperceptible, as the reality settled in. The world was delivering justice in ways they could never control. The sister who had excluded me, the mother who had told me not to make it about me, they were learning the cost of erasure. Not through confrontation, not through vengeance, but through the consequences of their own choices. I put my phone down and looked out the window. The city moved on, oblivious to my presence, just as I had moved on from theirs. For the first time, I felt entirely present for myself. I didn't need approval. I didn't need recognition. I didn't need anyone to validate my existence. Later, when the aftermath reached me in whispered phone calls and frantic texts, I continued to watch from my distance. I offered no solutions, no guidance, no attempts to soothe the storm they had created. I simply let them experience the consequences of their own disregard. And that was enough. In the quiet, I realized something vital: revenge doesn't always need action. Sometimes, the most devastating, the most transformative form of justice is restraint. The ability to stand aside, to choose yourself over the chaos, to remain unshaken while the world around you crumbles, that is true power. By the time the night ended, I had learned a truth I would carry forever: I was never invisible. I had simply been underestimated. And in that underestimated space, I had discovered my strength. For the first time, I wasn't reacting to their world. I was creating my own. And they would never forget it.